If you're an introvert, you might have clicked on this video solely because it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever read. And it's true. Chaos is exactly what we run away from. You're right, but hear me out. Today I want to talk to you guys about why we need chaos. And it might not be in the way that you think. So stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to share with you how this could change your life. Now before we get into the video, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Bridget. On this channel, I talk a lot about introverts. I talk about social anxiety, general anxiety, the books I'm reading, and other mental health related things. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go check out some of my other videos as well. So with that being said, let's get into the video. I'm an introvert who also struggles with social anxiety. So some of the things I talk about today might not relate to you exactly, but that's okay. But I find the introverts that I've had talked to and that I know, in one form or another, they definitely struggle with social situations. And a lot of the times, introverts have social anxiety. So I'm not going to direct all of the content towards social anxiety because I have tons of other videos related to that. So anyways, let me know if you can relate to this. Think of a time in your life where you just felt like people and life itself was just passing you by. You might be at that point in your life right now. Or think about a time in your life where you were under a lot of pressure. Maybe it was at school, work, your home life. What was it that got you out of that space? And how did you feel afterwards? My guess, it was probably that pressure and those hard circumstances that forced you to do something that maybe was a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe you wouldn't have normally done. But afterwards, you grew from it. Afterwards, you found yourself in this place like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe how I feel right now after just doing that. I've been in that situation so many times. And I'm sure all of you out there have been in that situation where you did something that you didn't think you could do. And you felt this immediate sense of like you could conquer the world. We get stronger under pressure. That necessity builds resilience. Now I'm going to get into some situations where us introverts, I think a lot of the time, find ourselves in a standstill. And here is how chaos can bring us out of that. Number one, we're homebodies. And that's great. Like, I love being a homebody. I love being alone. I'm alone right now. And I enjoy it. Like, I just like to be alone. I like to do whatever I want. I like to wear whatever I want. I like to just be alone. Okay? End of story. But I do find that sometimes I get too comfortable with being that homebody part of myself, that introverted side of myself. And I find myself in these patterns where it's like a week has gone by and I haven't really interacted with any of my friends or gone out because I work from home. So I haven't really socialized enough and I haven't just put myself outside of my comfort zone. That is being in those social situations, because that for me is something that is difficult. And so that's why I tend to, be stuck in that homebody state. And I'm sure you've probably felt this sense too, where when you get too comfortable, let's say it's in that homebody state, you kind of stay stuck. And it's not just in that social regard, it might be in your mental health, it might be in your physical health, right? That state of being stuck and being comfortable and being, in that lull, it starts to trickle out into other areas of your life. For me, when I do this, I find my social anxiety gets worse, way worse. I'll be, in my homebody state for like a week or maybe 2 weeks at max. And the next time I go into a social situation, I'm like, oh my God, it's like the first time I've ever spoken in my life. I sound like a robot. I sound like I'm stuttering and I'm not talking as much and I'm being awkward and weird and whatever. So when I find myself in that state, like I said, 2 weeks is my max. I usually never go that long. It's usually like less than a week. I'll have something scheduled every single week. So when I find myself in that lull, I make plans with people. I do something that gets me out of my comfort zone. I say yes to some kind of event when I know I'm probably not going to want to, especially if it's during the weekday, because I get into my routine and I get stuck and then it's a spiral. So pushing yourself into getting into that, I guess, chaos in in our terms, right? Gets you out of that lull. It helps you not to be in that comfort zone that even though we thrive in, it's not beneficial, right? It's uncomfortable to get out of that lull because I just want to curl up and be in my bed all day, but I can't because I know the consequences. And I'm positive that you guys have felt this too. Even if it's not in this situation, you know your limits. You know when something's not working. You know when you need to make adjustments. But it's actually telling yourself and committing to the process, right? That's the hardest part. But when I look back at situations in my life and when I start to understand my patterns, it's so much easier for me to recognize before I get into that really, really comfortable state. I know when to switch. I know when to make adjustments. So if you yourself can recognize your patterns, if you know when you're starting to get into that lull, you make an adjustment, it's going to be so much easier than when you're really in deep in that comfortable state. Because then you're really not going to want to do it. So start to notice the patterns before it gets harder. Another thing, we prefer not to be the most talkative in social gatherings. And I think this is maybe something that relates more to my social anxiety, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this that are just introverts. You know, we're not the first one to speak. We're not going to be the person who always has something great to say. It takes time for us to kind of gather our thoughts together. But sometimes I find when I stay true to that, even though I know it's like helpful in some ways, it's definitely not helpful for my social anxiety. So if I'm noticing that I'm getting to that point where I'm just not talking in the group, I try to make an adjustment to the best of my ability, right? I interject, even though it might be stupid. I tell a long story, even though I might not be the best storyteller. And I try to do my best to say things without thinking about them. And I'm going to get to that point in a second. It might be beneficial for other introverts, right? But I think in a lot of cases, whether it's like in a work environment or in a school environment, it might be beneficial for even everyone to have that ability to recognize when you're not doing your best, I guess, and you just need to get out of your comfort zone. I think a lot of the times it's so easy for us to just say, because I've done this myself, it's so easy for us to say, I'm this way, and that's why I don't do this. And while that's great, like right now I'm thinking about, oh, I'm a Sagittarius, so that's why I do this, or I'm a Libra, so that's why I do this. A lot of people with star signs and everything. And I totally get that. Like, I'm really into star signs. But I don't think we should be using it as an excuse. I think there's a fine line between knowing how we work best, how we operate best, and, you know, just what we are putting ourselves into a category. The more we tell ourselves that we're a certain way, the more we'll become that way. But it might not be the best way that we operate, right? So I think navigating that line is a little bit tricky, and just, again, through chaos, knowing where you can push yourself, where you can create a little bit of discomfort, but also, you know, discomfort that allows you to grow in the right direction. So I think in the beginning, when you're trying to like work through this and experiment and whatnot, it's about taking like small steps and just trying to recognize those patterns again. Because I myself am definitely the kind of person that used to say, I'm like this and that's how it's going to be. But in the long run, it's like, that's not benefiting me. I can't for my life say I'm an introvert, so I'm a homebody, and just, you know, reject every single invitation that everyone's ever sent. Just because it's too far, it's too long, there are too many people. Like, no, that's not going to be beneficial. It's going to hurt for a little bit, but I know at the end of the day, it's going to help me. And almost always, when I don't want to go and I say yes, I end up having an okay time. I end up meeting someone that I didn't know I was going to meet. I had a good conversation that I didn't know I was going to have. The more I look at that, the more I look at the positives that have come from putting myself in those uncomfortable situations, the more I realize that I need to start doing more of that. And the last thing I want to talk about is kind of what I briefly mentioned, the overthinking. Us introverts, it's just our favorite thing to do. Our thoughts are about the only chaotic thing about us. But the more energy we put into trying to control our thoughts and what we think about, the more those thoughts and ideas end up controlling us. I think about this all of the time. I spend so much time thinking about, something that I said to somebody at a party or an event, or like literally just an everyday activity, like something I said to the pharmacist. And I waste that energy thinking that, why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I say this? Right? Instead of just living and not thinking about it. Why am I wasting my time, my energy, just everything, thinking about what I could have said, right? Because in my head, that scenario was so much worse for me. Pharmacist probably doesn't remember it. Someone at that party probably doesn't remember it. It's something that I think that I messed up. They don't think I messed up. The amount of people we talk to throughout the day that, maybe they think they messed up during that conversation, it's just so many. And I think that happens to a lot of us. I'm sure you've experienced this. I really hope you do. Where you think you said something stupid, or you shouldn't have done something, and you're thinking about it for days, for weeks, for months. Ugh. You're dreaming about it. You're thinking, and it's just insane, because it's a thought, it's an idea that lives in our head, and we make it control everything. And so the more energy, the more time we put into trying to control, the more it ends up controlling us. And so where the chaos comes in, we have to relinquish control. We have to just say, hey, I said it, and that's it. You either like it or you leave it. You're gonna mess up, you're gonna say something stupid, and that's okay. If I could just bottle up all of the time that I spent thinking about things that I wish I didn't do, or I wish I didn't say, gosh, I'd probably have a solid extra couple years on my lifetime right now at this point, because that is how much time I spend trying to control what is happening here and what is happening out there. And I'm really done. I'm just done. I'm done doing it, and you should be too. So that is where the chaos comes in that part. And so you're probably thinking, wow, this is not the chaos that I thought she was going to talk about. But this is the chaos I mean. Because we try to control so many aspects of our life. Not even introverts, just everyone in general. And we need chaos. We need a little bit of chaos in order to innovate, in order to become resilient, in order to just become better versions of ourselves. Otherwise, we stay stuck. It affects our mental health, it affects our physical health, and it's not good. We need some kind of change. And so watch this video again and again. Hopefully you try some of these out. Hopefully you think about some of those patterns that I mentioned in the beginning of the video, and you start to realize that they're such small things that you could be implementing that are a little bit chaotic in your life that could literally completely change it. That might get you out of the lull, right? You might start to realize that maybe all I need to do is just let go. That might be it. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found it useful as always, and I will see you next time.